So I have a few questions for Pravin, and then we plan to intersperse the questions with some music. He's going to play some snatches of music. So we will be speaking in English and some Kannada. Pravin's novel, Haduva Gadiyara, is called The Singing Clock in English. It's about the time raga correlation in Hindustani music. It's a novel, and I think like Girish Karnad, he first wrote his novel in Kannada and then translated it. He translated it himself into English. So it's rather unusual for a musician to write a novel. We have novels about musicians, but Kannadadalli we have Ana Kru avara Sandhya Raga, and Tarasu avara Hamsagite, and more recently Bhairappa avara Mandra. ಈ ಥರ ಹಲವಾರು ಕಾದಂಬರಿಗಳು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಿವೆ. ಬಟ್ ಒಬ್ಬರು ಸಂಗೀತಗಾರರೇ ಒಂದು ಕಾದಂಬರಿ ಬರೆಯೋದು ಬಹಳ ಅಪರೂಪ ಅಂತ ನನಗೆ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಹೌ ಡಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಫೀಲ್ to be a novelist, and first of all, congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's indeed an honor to be in conversation with you in the presence of this distinguished audience. And you're no stranger to the stage. You've traveled across the world, you've performed across the world. But how does it feel to be on stage as a novelist? And why did you choose the novel form to tell your story?
Namaskar, good evening, and it gives me immense pleasure to be talking about my book today. See, as I've written in the first page of my book, I'm an accidental author. It just happened, during the COVID days when all the musicians were stuck and we were wondering how to utilize our time. I was watching some of these OTT serials and productions, and I somehow felt that there's a treasure that is not being communicated to the entire mass. So that is classical music and our traditional art forms. So, and I had a lot of questions about music, and I tend to think about music and why we are doing all these, the questions that I have raised in the book are questions that I keep asking my own self. So I just started writing a few lines, and then one of my friends said, why don't we try and bring out a music serial or a production? And so that is why I started writing this. And then I realized that the words just came about and the story just went on and on. And eventually I thought, okay, let me put it in a form of a book or a novel, and maybe that would inspire some producer, director to make a film or a production. So that was how I ended up writing this. And I wrote in Kannada because my characters are based in North Karnataka. So ಧಾರವಾಡ ಕನ್ನಡದಾಗ ಅವರು ಮಾತಾಡೋದು ಅದನ್ನು ಪುಸ್ತಕ ರೂಪದಾಗ ತಂದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಒಂದು ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಸಿಗ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಮ್ಯೂಸಿಕ್ ಜಾರ್ಗನ್ಸ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ವಿ ಯೂಸ್ are all based in our native. So it was difficult for me initially to translate in English, but then I thought I should do it because the whole effort was to reach out to a larger audience through the book or through a production, through a film or whatever. Right. So that was the whole point, and sitting on the stage and speaking like a novelist it gives me some happiness.
That's nice. Yeah, I think this is the second event where you're talking about your book. You had spoken about it at the Mysore Literary Festival, a very short session.
Yeah.
So let's look at how music plays a very important role in everything we do. ನಾವು ಏನೇ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ನಾಂದಿ ಪದ, ನಾಂದಿ ಹಾಡು, ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತ ನಾಟಕ, ಕಾಳಿದಾಸನ ನಾಟಕಗಳಿಂದ ಹಿಡಿದು ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಕಂಬಾರರ ನಾಟಕದವರೆಗೂ ಒಂದು ನಾಂದಿ ಹಾಡಿನಿಂದ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಈಗ ಹಾಗೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಮಂಗಳ ಕಾರ್ಯ ಆಗಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ಮಂಗಳವಾದ್ಯ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಅದರಿಂದಾನೇ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭ ಮಾಡೋದು. ಸೊ ನಮ್ಮ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮನೂ ಒಂದು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪುಟ್ಟ ಒಂದು ಕೊಳದಿನ ಒಂದು ರಾಗದಿಂದ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಾ?
Sure.
And also, since we talk about the correlation between the raga and the time of the day. So Prahara, the book is called Prahara, which means a unit of time. Prahara means to strike. It's not Prahara. So it's Prahara. So ee Prahara, idu dinada 5ನೇ Prahara. So in the 5th Prahara of the day, what would be the raga that you would play, and what would be the mood if you were to read the mood of this room and play something? What would it be?
Well, usually this is the time that around 6 p.m. when the sun is setting, we choose one of the twilight ragas, Sandhi Prakash ragas. So anything that is like Purvi or Purya Dhanashri or Shri or Purya Kalyan. And I would prefer Purya Kalyan because we are slightly moving away from that, the setting of the sun time into the Kalyan That. So I'll club both and play Purya Kalyan, a short brief alap of Purya Kalyan.
Lovely. I think connoisseurs of Hindustani music will have heard this raga in Bhimsen Joshi's voice, Bahut Dina Beete Beete.
Absolutely.
And then in several songs, I think Sandhya Raga has 2 or 3 songs based on Purvi Kalyani and Purya Kalyan, the Carnatic and the Hindustani. renderings of the same raga.
True.
Now, since your book posits the idea that each raga is intrinsically related to the time of the day, what is this? This is a Sandhi Kala raga, right? What is so twilighty about this raga?
There are two things to it. One is tradition or convention, because there have been I personally believe there have been a lot of experiments about time and the relation with the raga, and many maestros many decades ago, a few hundreds of years ago, they have come out with I would say a standard procedure kind of thing. But over the time, since it was not properly documented, it was just passed on from one guru to the other orally. So we don't have proper justification like scientifically. But personally, like for example, if we say Lalat in the morning, so I would picturize like if you in the morning when you wake up, you are not. You're not completely awake, so you have a tendency to yawn, and so those two madhyams, they play that kind of an a game,
Interplay
of two different emotions, whether to wake up or to sleep. So if you look at the ragas, some phrases, even when we say like Purya Dhanashri, so it gives a feeling of when you come back to the sa, like the sun is setting, and the whole body, you just want to relax after a hard day's work. So it would be very difficult to identify why exactly at sunset, but broadly what Bhatkande ji has done is he has chosen that Komal Rishabh and Komal Dhaivat with Shuddh Madhyam is for Sandhi Prakash in the evening, and with the Shuddh Madhyam for the early morning or the sunrise. So sunrise and sunset are two times when we get this twilight zone.
Right.
So he has classified based on that, and it has, even before that, I think these rules were much in vogue, but in different forms. Because see, one thing is for sure that Hindustani music doesn't have so much of history as other forms of music like Dhrupad or Carnatic. So if we go in the 18th century, 17th century, or much before that, the music that we call today as Hindustani Classical music might not be the same.
Yeah.
So there were different rules, different setup, but I think basically they had some Shastra which defined which raga has to be sung or played at what time. Or the other way to look at it, as I would say, is your presentation should be such that you should feel the time of the day. Right. So that is broadly what I personally believe in, and as I said in the beginning, I too have a lot of questions myself.
Right. So there's this Bhagyada Lakshmi Baramma, which probably uses the same notes as Purya Dhanashri, but it's Bibas. It's classified as what is it called? What is the raga?
I would say it is more like Bibhas.
Okay.
But over the years, as I said, while improvising, many of them tend to, because most of the times Bhagyada Lakshmi Baramma is sung in the evening and in the night.
But it's a morning raga.
End of the, you cannot sing a morning raga. You cannot improvise and bring out the morning raga. So probably, and what happens is these are applied forms of music. See, whether it is the devotional music or film music, ಏನಾಗತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಸ್ವರಗಳನ್ನ ಬಳಸಿ ಅವರ ಆ ಭಾವಕ್ಕೆ ತಕ್ಕ ಹಾಗೆ ಬಳಸೋದು. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ
ಅಳವಡಿಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕು, ಆ ಭಾವಕ್ಕೆ ಅಳವಡಿಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕು
ಅಷ್ಟೇ.
ಸೊ ಈಗ ಬಿಬಾಸ್ ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಇದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಫೀಲ್ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ತರ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ನೀವು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಯೋಚನಾ ಕ್ರಮ ಹೇಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. ಈಗ ನೀವು ಈವ್ನಿಂಗ್ ರಾಗ ಈಗ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ, ಅದನ್ನೇ ಈಗ ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ನೀವು ಬಿಬಸ್ ಇದೇ ಸ್ವರಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಬಿಬಸ್ ನುಡಿಸ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಯಾವ ಮನೋಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತೀರಿ?
ಸಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಷಾದ ಸ್ವರ ವರ್ಜ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ, ತೀವ್ರ ಮಧ್ಯಮ ಸ್ವರ ವರ್ಜ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಸಾರೆಗಪ ದಸ ಅಂತ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ ಬಿಬಾಸ್. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ದಸ ಧರೆ ನುಡಿಸಿದಾಗ there is one feeling of euphoria, there's something like you feel fresh, it gives you a lot of energy. That's
Right.
the kind of phrase, the phrase itself will give you an impetus.
Okay.
So I think that is why Vibhas is
As a morning raga, and something like Puriya Dhanashri is presented in the evening. Right. So, it's very intriguing how Hindustani music has this system of the Prahar system representing the time cycle, the daily time cycle. And so, is this a musical convention? Like a poetic convention, we associate certain things with certain emotions, a rose with love and romance, so on and so forth. Is this a musical convention that's come to us over the years? And if it is a musical convention, how do we say that this is the way to perform? These are the ragas that we have to perform at this time, because all poetic conventions, all musical conventions are always challenged. Somebody comes up with a new way of saying the same things. So how do you look at this?
As I said, see, the general convention is Deepak Rag, for example. Deepak Rag, we have heard stories that whenever Tansen sang Deepak Rag, ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಉರಿ ಹತ್ಕೊಂತು, ಬೆಂಕಿ ಹತ್ಕೊಂತು, and then he sang Malhar and ಮಳೆ ಬಂತು and all the fire was doused and all that. The way to look at it is that it is not possible to create fire out of a raga. It's the feeling. The way he sang Deepak might have created that feeling in the minds of the listeners, that so much of heat is generated or there's so much of energy. But when he sang Malhar, then that complete contrast. So it is not necessary that every raga is associated with as you say a convention. So it is mostly when you describe something, the authors or the presenters themselves, they add a lot of stories to it. So some might be true, some might not be, but generally, as far as the time is concerned, as I said earlier, the performer has to perform in such a way that the listener feels the time of the day. Over the last few decades, what has happened is, since we are performing mostly in the auditoriums, and it is always the same, whether it is raining outside, so with the lights and everything, the listener or the performer is not connected directly to what is happening in the world around him. So that much leeway most of the musicians take, and since most of the concerts happen in the evening, we don't get a chance to perform the morning ragas or the afternoon ragas or the late night ragas. So to a certain extent, we take some liberty, like we are performing in the evening, so we perform the say a sunset raga, then directly move on to midnight raga, so that at least we get to perform and people get to listen to it.
Right. I think that's a good thing you do, because otherwise, how do we even listen to Lalit? It's supposed to be sung at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know how many of us here wake up at 4 o'clock and start listening to music.
But having said that, we cannot start a performance with a Lalit.
Okay.
So we cannot break the convention to that extent.
Okay.
That is somehow, although everybody says it is okay to do that, we do that during our recordings in All India Radio or Doordarshan, because we don't have a choice. Right. A morning raga has to be recorded in the evening or afternoon, whenever they call us. So that much adjustment is there. But when we sit for a performance, so it is mostly sticking to the Prahar.
So Lalit is mostly sung in the during daytime, is what you're saying?
The first Prahar.
No, conventionally, according to the Prahar system, but you sing it. When do you sing it? When you have a concert?
It has to be sung in the morning. So we rarely perform.
It's never sung.
We can go up to Darbari.
Okay.
Second or third Prahar of the night.
Okay.
Till that point we can go. We can play, or we can play a Basant.
Okay.
Which is, according to the Prahar, it is 3 a.m.
Right.
2 a.m., 3 a.m. So that raga can be performed at 8 a.m., 9 a.m. when you're closing the concert. Or a Bhairavi, which is again a morning
raga, and but then again Bhairavi is used symbolically to conclude concerts.
Correct.
And the assumption must be that it's daytime now and you've listened to a whole night of music.
Correct.
Right. So let's talk about your novel.
Mm-hmm.
the protagonist in your novel is a classical musician, Sharada Prasad Buwa, highly respected, and he invents a clock that plays a raga for 3 minutes on the hour. At the stroke of every hour, there is this jukebox kind of contraption that he creates, that he invents with the help of a clockmaker. And then this jukebox plays a raga at the stroke of the hour. And it's set in the 60s, so which is when I'm assuming they made 78 RPM records. And so these records, and he is able to make only one such clock because he does not find support from HMT. He approaches HMT, and like any public sector undertaking, they don't show too much enthusiasm to this completely new idea. But HMT was a very popular brand among brides and bridegrooms. Nobody would get married without an HMT watch in those days. So he creates this new contraption, a clock, a raga clock, and so the story revolves around the challenges of making this clock, and then what happens when the clock plays these ragas all day. So were you witness to any such experiment, or is this something that you thought up as an idea worthy of exploration? How did you come up with this idea? And this was way before we had computers and AI hadn't come into our lives yet. So it might not have been so easy then, but it's probably an idea whose time has come. You can do it today.
It's very easy now, I guess. There are a lot of engineers here, and I myself, I finished my electrical and electronics engineering, so I had that, what you call that worm, that kida in my mind to think, differently. So this was purely a thought of what would have happened if there was a clock in every household in India immediately after the independence, when there was a dearth of support for classical musicians, and the main protagonist believes that we have this abundance of knowledge of raga system, which he believes can heal, can soothe, can nurture. So his idea was this clock should be in every Indian household. So the 24 hours is completely, the whole family is immersed in music. So the crying baby or the young youth or even some laborer who is struggling for his daily needs, it is going to cater to everybody. That was his idea. So this idea came to me just like that. What would have, it was just a thought कि ऐसा अगर होता तो क्या होता? Would the present generation of musicians like me, would we have maybe we would have been in a better position? Like people would already know about ragas, would know already about the shastra behind it, or there might be different expertise of treating illnesses. So all these thoughts, because
right.
My frame of mind was we were going through COVID, and a lot of things were coming up, like Ayurvedic treatment, and the different kinds of treatments were coming every day. So I was thinking, why not music?
Yeah.
If something had been done then we would have been in a position to say, if you have stomach ache, then listen to this raga in this shruti by this musician. There would be a prescription, and all the musicians would be richer much more.
Right.
But then I thought, how do I bring that about? So it is a hypothetical situation wherein a jukebox is connected to a huge wall clock, and I just assumed that a shock, that is a mechanical shock that is sent from the clock to the jukebox, will make the LP sing.
Will trigger the jukebox and play a record. Yeah.
So it was just a hypothetical thing, and even on the book, the cover page design, It's basically I have chosen a jukebox, and then I have chosen a wall clock, connected both of them. And when I released this book in 2022, I made Sri Shashidhar Adpa design a box similar to that. And the inauguration of the book, the launch of the book was unveiling this clock.
Okay.
So there was a huge clock and this jukebox below, and it weighs like 35 kgs because it's completely made of wooden. But we couldn't figure out how to make it sing, like bring out a LP player or so. So we put a Bluetooth speaker and we played the song from background. And but as you said, it's very easy now. You can
right.
It's a matter of
doable.
Yeah, it's very much doable. Any software engineer could just trigger, what ragas to be played, and then it can go to any extent, like what ragas, what instrument, and what speed, whether you want only the alaps, or you want the drut bandeshas, or there can be hundreds of
shuffle it so that you listen to new compositions each day, new singers, new instrumentalists every day.
It can be an app, and then app can be upgraded every now and then
there's any startups here, an app idea. Yeah. So the novel actually begins with a run-in between two great vocalists. Mm-hmm. So Sharada Prasad Buwa and Ustad Shahbaz Khan.
Yeah.
And they are at a conference where all artists have to sing just one raga, which
Correct.
is Miya Ki Todi. Mm-hmm. And Sharada Prasad Buwa sings Multani instead of Miya Ki Todi because by the time his turn comes, the time for Miya Ki Todi has passed. And he's a staunch proponent of the Prahara system. So, ಈ ಎರಡು ರಾಗಗಳು ಮುಲ್ತಾನಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮಿಯಾಕಿ ತೋಡಿ ಅದೇ ಸ್ವರಗಳಿದ್ರೂ ಎರಡು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ತರ ನುಡಿಯುತ್ತೆ, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ತರ ಕೇಳುತ್ತೆ. ಇದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಡೆಮಾನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ತೋರಿಸ್ಬೋದಾ? ಎರಡು ರಾಗಗಳ ನಡುವೆ ಇರೋ ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಏನು? ಯಾಕೆ ಮಿಯಾಕಿ ತೋಡಿ ಹಾಡು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ ಅವರು ಅದನ್ನ ಹಾಡದೆ ಮುಲ್ತಾನಿ ಯಾಕೆ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ.
ಮುಲ್ತಾನಿ ಹಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಕಾರಣ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಬೈ ದ ಟೈಮ್ ಅವಾಗ ಮುಂಚೆ ಒಂದು ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಏಕ್ ರಾಗ್ ಕಿ ಮೆಹಫಿಲ್ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರಂತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಆಲ್ ದ ಆರ್ಟಿಸ್ಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ರಾಗ. So it was basically a competition, like you are given a task, you have to sing, and let's see who impresses the audience, that kind of a thing. So he was a strong proponent of Prahara system. So by the time he goes onto the stage, it's 3 in the afternoon. So automatically the Multani comes out.
His mind is tuned to Multani rather than Miya Ki Todi.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll demonstrate how there are subtle differences between these two ragas. By the way, this is not the time to play either of these.
And thankfully you are not Buwa.
Yeah.
Buwa wouldn't have done this.
This is Miyagi Todi.
Wonderful. So to look at this in a lay music lover's language, there is a picture and you look at it with one focus for Miyaki Todi, and then you change your perspective, look at another aspect of the same picture when you come to Multani. Would it be correct to look at it that way?
Absolutely. That would be the right way to look at the thing. Because see, basically the set of notes are the same. Only the ascending, descending and the Vadi, Samvadi, they change. And that creates a different mood.
Right.
So when you sustain on Komal Rishabh, then there is a sense of pathos or, sense of longing. But when when the Rishabh is subdued, like in Multani, then it gives a completely different picture. It rather gives you more Vira Rasa.
Right.
So the presentations are also similar.
Right. So I think there are many ragas in Hindustani music where the swaras are the same, and then the raga changes depending on where you focus. Like
Absolutely.
say Marwa and Puriya and Sohni and
Correct.
ragas with more or less the same.
Absolutely, you're perfect.
notes and right. So it's a question of perspective, is what you're saying, and how you present it.
Correct.
Which raga you give more importance to, and which note you give more importance to, and which note you subdue.
Subdued, right? Yeah. See, in Todi and Multani, what happens is the Rishabh in particular, when you sustain on Rishabh, it is related to the sun, saying that it is not that sharp,
Right.
But afternoon, it's quite hot and sunny, and you
That's
can
what
feel
it
that.
tries to represent.
Exactly.
Right. So, how much of this Prahara theory is objective? The question is how much of it is subjective and how much of it is objective? Because are we generalizing too sweepingly when we assume that ragas impact everyone in the same way? I mean, we all come to music with our own ideas, our own songs in our heads, our own favorite ragas. ಈ ರಾಗ ಇಷ್ಟ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಈ ಹಾಡು ಇಷ್ಟ, ಈ ಹಾಡು ಕೆಟ್ಟದಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತಾನೆ ನಮ್ಮ ತಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗಲೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ನಾವು ಇಂಥ ರಾಗ ಇಂಥದೇ ಪರಿಣಾಮ ಬೀರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಜನರಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದು ಥಿಯರಿ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯನಾ ಈ ಪ್ರಹಾರ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ದಂಗೆ? ಅಂಡ್ isn't there a very personal dimension to what we hear and how we hear it and what we like and dislike?
See, I have taken liberty to a great extent when I was writing about this book. ಕೆಲವು ರಾಗಗಳು ಇಂಥ ಭಾವನೆ ಹುಟ್ಟಿಸುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋಕ್ಕಿಂತ, ಆಸ್ ಐ ಸೆಡ್ ಅರ್ಲಿಯರ್, ಹುಟ್ಟಿಸ್ಬೇಕು. ಈಗ ಯಮನ್ ಕೇಳಿದರೆ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಶೃಂಗಾರ ರಸ ಕಾಣಬೇಕು ಅಥವಾ ಭಕ್ತಿ ರಸ ಕಾಣಬೇಕು. ಬಟ್ ಅಫ್ಕೋರ್ಸ್ ದೆನ್ ವೆನ್ ವಿ ಸೇ ಅಬೌಟ್ ರಸ, ದೆನ್ ಇಟ್ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ಸೋ ಮೆನಿ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್. ಲಯ ಭಾವನೂ ಒಂದು ಭಾವ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ಆರ್ ಯು ಸಿಂಗಿಂಗ್ ದ ರಾಗ? It also matters. So as you said, the listener's perspective also matters. If he is in a good mood, then he'll enjoy music. If he's in a bad mood, even a good music will not appeal to him, right? So the listener he should not be prejudiced when he's listening to any form of music. Having said that, tried and tested anta ide idu classical music alli. Most of the ragas, even when a beginner is performing, so you tend to even maybe the listener also is kind of used to those ragas and those kind of compositions, so the impact on him about the raga, especially because we are in Bangalore and most of you are used to Carnatic concerts. So if you listen to any Carnatic composition sung by a student or by a veteran, the same composition, you know what is coming next, because the compositions are so popular and everybody almost can sing along with the artist. So they are in tune with the artist even without much effort from the performer. But in Hindustani music, you actually have to make an effort to connect with them. And so the ragas, the moods that you create with the swaras of the ragas play an important role. So generally, see, if, as a convention, if you see that the last part of a raga where the performer is playing fast tans and doing jugalbandis with the tabla, and it is like a very high energy performance at that point of time. A lot of people experience that energy, and that comes out in the forms of claps. Very few people can concentrate whether that sitar string now is out of tune and he's still playing the jhala. You know, only the front few rows might observe that, you know, it's going out of tune, but he still manages to get the claps, and it becomes a successful concert. So, so these are some questions that I am dealing with myself as a musician. So there are several things that come into play when we say that, you know, music is healing. So as I earlier said earlier, yav shrutiyalli irbeku. Should it be a male voice or a female voice? Or should it be 15 minutes of alap or 1 hour of alap? You know, every raga is constructed in such a way that it has got its own time sense. Not according to the day, but also how long should be an alap for Marwa, or how long should be an alap for Sohni? Both are different.
Right.
So there's hundreds of things that come into play.
So it's up to the musician to be able to read what works, what doesn't work.
Exactly.
How to present a raga, how short to keep it, how much you can elaborate, and all these are things that you have to think on your feet.
Correct. And the other aspect is, see, ragas for performance is one aspect, wherein you are performing for an audience. The organizer is in the side wings. He is expecting something from you. Right. So when that is happening, then your performance, your choice of ragas, your everything changes. But when you are playing for a certain thing, like your personal happiness, or to impress your guru, or an experiment to see if this raga works on a particular listener. So how you use your musical knowledge under different circumstances,
right.
The results are different.
Yeah, so true, because I mean, you are a very versatile musician yourself, and you have recorded fusion music, and I remember this particularly successful, it was a blockbuster hit, Ragrang,
yeah.
With Kadri Gopalnath, and I hear it being played to this day. You know, it's probably 20 years old.
You had written the sleeves for the CD.
Yeah, I had the good fortune of writing the sleeve notes for it. So, I mean, in my office, that's the ringtone. You know, when the phone rings, it's still your flute that we hear. So, it's a particularly successful recording where you took film songs and then you explored the ragas on which the film songs were based. So, for many of us, you know, the entry into classical music, the little door that takes us there is film music. You know, we listen to film songs and then say, oh, isn't this somewhat like this raga that I heard the other day on the radio?
Correct. And
radio played a very big role in our younger days, and today it's only commercial film music that you hear on FM radio. Now, to look at the other side of your music, where you play something that sounds very jazzy, something that sounds non-classical, if there is such a thing, right? So, when you believe very strictly in the Prahar system, does it sort of bother you that you have to play a morning raga in the evening? And, you know, because, I mean, is there an inner Buwa in you who tells you, oh, no, stop, don't do that?
No, the thing is, I've somehow managed to draw a line between what I do for my happiness and what I do for a livelihood. So when I compose, I come out of that shell, and you know, I work on melodies that can linger on. But my effort always has been to stick to a particular raga or a set of notes throughout the composition. I might deviate, branch out, go out somewhere, show other swaras and come back. But that main thing, like as you mentioned, Ragrang, I started off with Malkaus. And then I added a few notes here and there and made it more contemporary. And to begin with, it comes out with a very popular tune that has been used in a film song. So, see, even there, the need for me to introduce film songs that are based on ragas was to popularize classical music. You know, my point was, this song is based on this raga. So you listen to a 3-minute film song and you say, oh wow, what amazing music. But if you are made to listen to a 1-hour presentation of the same set of notes, imagine the amount of happiness that you're going to derive. That was the point that I was trying to make through those CDs.
Right.
So whenever I do compositions, I try to bring in these elements, the contemporary elements, the popular stuff, so that people can relate to it. My ultimate thing is, I want people to come to my concert in the concert halls and listen to the pure format of the raga.
Ragadari music eventually.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Could you demonstrate how a film song actually borrows from the classical style, and then perhaps show how the same thing would sound in a classical setting?
Yeah, there are several examples. Let me see. They have utilized and then made a rag malika. So there are several examples. Like now, if you take Yaman, or Yaman Kalyan. So there are several examples. Now, earlier I also mentioned about Laya Bhav. So Yaman, as it gives, Shringara Ras or Bhakti Ras predominantly. If there is the tempo, when it comes into picture, then it also can give you an effect of pathos. That's a patha song. Of course, the lyric plays an important role, but the swaras are the same. Just by rendering it in a different way, you're bringing that emotion. Without the lyric also, see, I played it on the flute, but that feeling of sadness is there. So, bhava, to bring out the emotions in a raga, several things come into play.
Thank you. I think that was a wonderful demonstration of how film music is so intrinsically linked to many of the ragas in the classical tradition. So to get back to your book, so Sharada Prasad Buwa, says the Prahara system is based on what is laid down in our Shastras. So, what are the Shastras that you are referring to? Because I mean, there are some texts, I believe the Sangeeta Makaranda, which was written sometime between the 7th and the 11th century, makes a reference to this.
Yeah.
And there is Sharanga Devasa Sangeeta Ratnakara, which was written around the 13th century, in which case it probably wasn't talking about Hindustani music as we know it today.
Correct.
Because Hindustani music, the advent of Hindustani music is probably came about sometime in the 13th century.
Correct.
And then, so what are the Shastras that we are talking about? What we know for sure is that Pandit Pravin Godkhindi formalized the Ragas and created the thought system, somewhat like the Mela Karta system of the Carnatic system, which was again mentioned in Chaturdandi Prakashika, is it? Venkatamaki's book, which actually classifies Carnatic music into 72 Mela Karta Ragas.
Correct.
Right? So, but Godkhindi's system looks at 10 thoughts and the ragas coming out of them, and then I think it sort of took over from where people had the earlier classification of ragas and raginis. Ragas being those with the major notes, and raginis being those with the komal swaras, with the semitones. Right. So now, what are the shastras that actually talk about this correlation between the prahara and the raga cycle? Because Carnatic music doesn't believe in this cycle. There is no such idea here in southern music.
See, when I was growing up, I had the great fortune of spending time with many of these legendary maestros. They used to come home and my dad used to accompany them on harmonium, and there were a lot of discussions happening about raga, prahar, and all this has come out in the book because of those, discussions. Several of them, these maestros, believed that this is an age-old theory. So, Sangeet Makaranda, attributed to Narada, has some references about time and ragas. But as I said earlier, we don't know what kind of music prevailed during that time. So how much of that has percolated to today's Hindustani classical music? But these values were there somehow. We don't know if they vanished from southern music, the Carnatic music, midway, or this theory never, it is difficult to believe that these theories never existed, because they have, from the time that we have started documenting Hindustani music, we have seen that all the people, all the maestros believed in this theory. So it definitely has a history to it. As I said in the beginning, it is more of an oral tradition. So during my childhood also, some of the questions that we used to ask the maestros, they would just simply say, "Hey, nam gurugal helara na haadtene ashta. Avaru haadtidru na haadtene, neenu hanga maadu ashta." So that was the thing. They would not go into the theoretical part of it and answer the complete thing. But that these, of course, I also again and again I'm saying I also have a lot of questions, about the thought system and about so many things. I'm also trying to find an answer to many of these questions. And this book, I'm still hoping that many people will read and come out with questions, and maybe some will go into research and try to find answers to them. If not for anything else, just to make ourselves more comfortable.
Right. I think one thing that I've heard is that in Carnatic music, there is a raga called Amrita Varshini, which is associated with the rain, and but otherwise there is no talk of you should sing Hindola only in the evening. There is no such thing, Maya Malavagaula only in the morning.
Yeah.
So Carnatic music that way does not believe, as it exists today, in the idea that the ragas are closely associated with the prahara idea of the time cycle.
Exactly. That is why whenever I'm playing a Jugalbandi, I tend to break this rule. Because both of us have to come to a compromise, selecting the raga. So if they're playing at 7 p.m., then I'm playing Chakravaka and Abhihir Bhairav. We play together.
Right.
We just leave those rules aside and we try to create a harmony.
Right.
So yeah, several occasions when we break these rules ourselves.
Right. Yeah. And for example, when you create music for television serials, films,
Absolutely.
anything, ಆ ರೋಹಿತ್ ಅವರು ನಿನಗೆ ಈ ಮೂವರ್ ಒಳಗೆ
Yeah.
ತುಂಬಾ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು.
ಹೌದು.
ನೀವು it was based on a raga, but again it was played in the evening, ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲ ಬರೋದು. ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ರಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ ಅದನ್ನ. ಪುರಂದರದಾಸರ
ಹೌದು.
ಒಂದು ಕೃತಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಬ್ಯೂಟಿಫುಲ್ ಆದಂತ ಕೃತಿ, ಮತ್ತೆ ನೀವು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅದು ಬಹಳ ಜನಪ್ರಿಯವಾಗಿತ್ತು.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
ಸೊ ಹೀಗೆ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಈಗ ಬುವಾ ಅವರ ಸಂಗೀತದಲ್ಲೇ ತುಂಬಾ ನಾವು ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಮೆಚ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾದಂತ ತುಂಬಾ ಗುಣಗಳಿದೆ ಅವರಲ್ಲಿ. ಅವರ ಕನ್ವಿಕ್ಷನ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅವರ ನಂಬಿಕೆ, ಅವರು ಇದನ್ನು ಮಾಡಲೇಬೇಕು, ಇಂಥದ್ದೊಂದು ಗಡಿಯಾರ ತಯಾರಿಸಲೇಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅವರ ಛಲ, ಇಂಥದ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಅವರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕಾಣ್ತೀವಿ. ಬಟ್ ಒಂದೇನು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್, ಬುವಾ ಅವ್ರ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಎಷ್ಟು ಒಂಥರ ಅವ್ರ ಭಕ್ತಿ ಭಾವನೆ ಹುಟ್ಟಿಸ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಅವರು ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಆಗಿದಾರಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಏನು ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅನುಮಾನ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಸಂಗೀತಗಾರರಿಗೂ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಇದ್ದಂಗೆ ಕಷ್ಟ ಸುಖ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ದುಡ್ಡು ಕಾಸು ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ, ರೆಂಟ್ ಕಟ್ಟಬೇಕು, ಇದು ಇದ್ದೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಇಂಥ ಬುವಾ ಒಬ್ರು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಸಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಯುಟೋಪಿಯನ್ ಐಡಿಯಲಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ ಬುವಾ ಅವ್ರನ್ನೇ ಇನ್ನೊಂದ್ಸಲಿ ಅವರ ಕನ್ಸರ್ವೇಟಿಸಮ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಆರ್ಥೋಡಾಕ್ಸಿನ ನೋಡೋಣ. ಮೆನಿ ಆಫ್ ದೀಸ್ ಕನ್ವೆನ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಆಫನ್ ಟರ್ನ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಡಾಗ್ಮಾಸ್, ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ we see this in religion, we see this in honor killing, we see this in society, in many forms. It manifests itself in many forms because we believe the convention is sacrosanct, and we try to go very strictly by such conventions. ಸೊ ಬುವಾ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅವರ ಶಿಷ್ಯ ಒಬ್ಬ ಇರ್ತಾನೆ, ಆನಂದ್ ಅಂತ. ಅವನು ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಬಂದು ಹಾಡಿದಾಗ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಿಟ್ಟು ಬಂದ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ. ಸೊ ಈಗ ನಾವು ಬುವಾ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಐಡಿಯಲೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಗಜಲ್ ಕೇಳಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಭಾವಗೀತೆ ಕೇಳಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ತೂ ಚೀಸ್ ಬಡಿ ಹೇ ಮಸ್ತ್ ಮಸ್ತ್ ಕೇಳಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಈ ಒಂಥರ ಭಯ ಹುಟ್ಟಿಸುವಂತ ಒಬ್ಬ ಗುರುಗಳಾಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟವ್ರು. ನಮ್ಗೆ ಇವು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ಬಹಳ ಒಂದು ಡೈಲಮಾ ಅಂತೂ ಅವರ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ನಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ಇಡುತ್ತೆ. So how do you, as a composer of music for films and TV serials, look at this kind of orthodoxy, this idea that this is the way it should be and there is no way you can stray from it?
That's a very beautiful question. I really love the way you put it across. So, first of all, this Buwa character is a mix of so many characters that I came across. So, most of the maestros during that time had that kind of a mentality, because that is the way they were brought up. The guru, whatever the guru says, you have to accept it, no matter what. And he is no less than God. That is what the Shishyas believe, and they followed him. If he says for 2 years you're not going to sing, you're just going to play the Tanpura for me, so that's it. That is what they were supposed to do. You're not supposed to. Even in my book, he's not allowed to touch the Tanpura also. He says, ಮೊದಲು ಸಂಸ್ಕಾರ ಆಗಬೇಕು ನಿನಗೆ ಸಂಗೀತದ್ದು. So you just have to listen to my music while I'm teaching the other students, and you have to do the daily chores, whatever is needed. So that was the kind of environment most of the musicians went through, and that was, a tapas or a sadhana that the gurus used to do. And the reason why they wanted it, their students to be pure, even now, some part of Buwa is all there in me too. Only when I'm teaching music, I tell my students, you have to learn classical music first, you have to learn ragas first. I play film songs, but I don't teach film songs, because that is not what we are. That has got a very small history if you look at it. Classical music, the ragas have histories of hundreds of years. So which should be more important to us as a society? What should we be longing for? What should we promote? What should we be listening to more? What should we be proud of more? Bollywood or any film song or any other form of music has a very it doesn't have a history, very long history, right? So these were the thoughts that the musicians of those years, 50s, 60s, they possessed that and they were proud of it. I don't sing film songs. Many of them never sang thumris all their life. They consider thumri as a lighter thing. Someone else will sing. I'll sing only rag. I'll only sing ragdari. So I was fortunate to see all these, as a very young child. I was fortunate to see all these discussions happening, and I also questioned my father about all these. And then the Sharada Prasad Buwa that I have created has a lot of elements that my father had. He was a wonderful composer himself, but he had his own set of thoughts. Like if you are fusing two different elements, if you are bringing or if you are doing some mishra raga or something, there has to be a skeleton to it. There has to be a proper dikhna chahiye ki kya ho raha hai. Just because there are 12 notes at disposal, just using them randomly wherever, however you want, will not create what effect is needed.
Yeah, I think it's you're right about how it represents a certain kind of conservatism, which actually nurtures many things, keeps many things alive for centuries. I had interviewed Ustad Vilayat Khan once, and he was a proponent of this kind of conservatism, because he said, what is this fusion music? I mean, he was not too happy with what Pandit Ravi Shankar was doing, for instance.
Correct.
And he said, you either play Chandni Kedar or you play the Moonlight Sonata. Don't try to mix the two. I think there is this school of thought which believes that you have to keep them separate, keep them apart. But then there are also things like, jazz, for example.
Sorry to interrupt you. Just a thought came across. While we were recording, and I used to do a lot of recording sessions, sometimes, the Dasar Padas used to, some people, musicians wanted to bring out the contemporary stuff for Purandar Dasa. So a senior music director would say, Purandar Dasar ke jeans o goggle hakbet rappa anta.
Right, yeah.
So, there is a limit to, and as I said, you should know where to draw the lines.
But as I said, it's a school of thought. There are people doing Kabir, in rock. Right? I mean, it keeps happening. So I think we will have to give you some time to perform. So I have one last question, perhaps.
Sure.
I think
7:35.
7:35. Yeah. So you have a very interesting mix of characters in your novel. There is the Gurukul, and there are students like Anand and Rashmi. And there's a budding romance there, which actually seeks to overcome caste barriers. And there is singer Shrivani, and there's a watchmaker Zameer, who actually helps create this clock. There is neurologist Dr. Manohar, Auto Joshi, who is an auto driver and an amateur classical musician.
Correct.
So I mean, a very motley crowd of very interesting characters. But very striking is this character called Sarita. I hope this is not a spoiler, but Sarita is when she listens to Komal Rishabh Savari, she has a cathartic kind of experience, and she comes out talking about something from her past, a troubled past, and then she weeps. She hasn't spoken about it ever, and then it moves her to a point when she is able to talk about it. So now there's one more character called Shankar Kulkarni, and this comes towards the end of the novel, where there's a Dr. Manohar, the neurologist, who performs a musical surgery on him. He's been in a coma, and then this clock plays its music, and then there is something that happens to him. Something that quickens in him, right? So now, how did you come to write this? Because were you consulting neurologists? Were you consulting doctors? And I mean, is there a risk that people might think that listening to music is the way to cure some of these so-called incurable problems. And, this, towards the end of the book, there's a lot of drama in this sense, medical drama. How did you write this? As I said, did you talk to neurologists, neuroscientists, or did you personally see people being healed, cured of many of these, of some of these very serious problems?
I came across people or articles that mentioned about such experiments being done in India and abroad. One of them was a patient in West Bengal who was subjected to some mental trauma, and he stopped responding to medication, and because the doctor was a huge fan of Dr. N. Rajam, he made the patient listen to her violin, and miraculously the patient responded to it. So several of such stories were there, even several unwritten stories that we had heard.
Because these are not documented in the medical journals. I mean,
Yes.
These are probably anecdotal.
Anecdotal. But ragas, as there were several experiments that ragas can evoke some response in animals too. There are several journals about that. And luckily I have a set of doctor friends whom I used to spend a lot of time, and especially during COVID. So I just kept on asking them questions: what exactly happens, and what would happen if person is subjected to musical surgery. So there were different opinions,
Right.
because being doctors, obviously they would say medicine is the thing, the other things doesn't matter.
Right.
But there were some doctors who said that yes, sometimes you never know,
Right. I mean, there's a possibility that
There is a possibility.
they might improve and come out of.
So when I decided that this has to be a fiction novel, I decided to take certain things, stretch my imagination, and it was basically for, as I said, for a film.
Yeah.
So wahan to chalta hai, you can take any.
Right.
So that is why I took some liberties, and I introduced all those characters and the drama just to make it an interesting read.
Right. Right. So, I mean, there's also the risk that, something that's being played to me by my doctors is something that pushes me further into depression, right? I mean, speaking on a personal note, for a long time, my parents used to listen to a lot of Carnatic music.
Okay.
And after that passing, I found it difficult to listen to Carnatic music for many years because, it created a certain... I was disturbed when I heard Carnatic music. I've been able to overcome that. But in addition to healing, it can probably also have the other kind of effect, right? I mean,
that is why I always say, many people have come to me to create CDs and for relaxation and to come out with some kind of match the following, like, for stomachache, this raga, for headache, this raga. I said, no way.
We have to look at it with a lot of skepticism because
no, that's not possible. At least personally, I don't think I have those powers at all in me to create that kind of an journal.
Yeah.
But having said that, I definitely believe ragas and the frequencies that we bring out through the ragas. See, they are basically frequencies, different sets.
Right.
So, even in the novel, I have mentioned that the doctor proposes a theory where he says that using different frequencies, we are trying to target the resonant frequency of a ill patient.
Right.
So, if we are able to create that, what you call the resonance in that body, then it will react differently, and maybe...
Yeah, I think you're right, because perhaps how we are able to discern the tempo of a song even before the beat begins.
Correct.
Is possibly the activity of the neurons lighting up, and there is definitely something happening out there.
Yeah.
But as I said, many of the things like, say, listen to Desi Todi for 20 minutes every day for 1 month and your BP will come down and you can throw away your pills is something that we should look at with, I think, some degree of skepticism.
But the worst thing is some people, they are prescribing film songs for ailments.
Okay.
Which is totally, classical music definitely has a healing power. if it is by a good performer. If whatever mood you are, you listen to any raga of Bhimsen Joshi, you will feel good.
Right.
But the same cannot be said.
But again, it's culturally determined. I mean, if you are not tuned to Hindustani music, perhaps it will take you time before you can actually come to that state. So, what are you working on now, and when is your next book coming out?
Well, right now I'm working on a couple of stories. One of them is where I link classical music to crime. So, something totally new and drastic. So both the crime and the classical music go parallelly, and they meet at one point of time. So that is one thought process that is going on, and there's a structure to it. I still have to develop that into a proper novel. And there are other short stories that I've written. Everything is based on classical music for me. I don't deviate from that. As I said, through these books, I'm trying to question my own self, answer my own self, and put across a few thoughts and questions so that people can discuss about it.
Right. So, lots of work for musicians and neuroscientists there. And thank you for this really wonderful conversation, enlightening.
Thank you so much.
And I have a small one paragraph that Harvard Medical School has put up on its blog about the power of music. It says, how does music promote well-being, enhance learning, stimulate cognitive function, improve quality of life, and even induce happiness? The answer is because music can activate almost all brain regions and networks. It can help to keep a myriad of brain pathways and networks strong, including those networks that are involved in well-being, learning, cognitive function, quality of life, and happiness. In fact, there is only one other situation in which you can activate so many brain networks all at once, and that is when you participate in social activities. So, listen to music, make friends, is basically what Harvard is saying. And thank you for this wonderful conversation and sharing all your experience with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This book is in both Kannada and English, so you can. I'll be happy if you purchase the book, read it, and then send your reviews. I have tried my best to keep the book entertaining as well as a lot of information put across into it.
Thank you. So the plan is Pravin will perform with Kiran for a little while.
Yeah.
And then we
for a couple of for a few minutes, and then
if you have
any questions, you can simple ones preferably.
Once again, I'd like to thank SR Ramakrishnan for agreeing to interlocute this session, and I'd like to invite Pravin Godkhindi to perform.
somebody wanted a Pahadi, so I'll just play a brief Pahadi alap. Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳ್ತೇನೆ. ನಮಸ್ತೆ. ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಇನ್ನೂ ಓದಬೇಕು, ಬಟ್ ನಂಗೆ ಒಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಇತ್ತು. ನೀವು ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ರಾಗ ಹಾಡ್ತೀರಿ, ಮಧ್ಯಾಹ್ನ ರಾಗ ಹಾಡ್ತೀರಿ, ಸಂಜೆ ರಾಗ ಹಾಡ್ತೀರಿ. ಆದರೆ ಚಳಿಗಾಲದ ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ಮತ್ತು ಬೇಸಿಗೆಗಾಲದ ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ಸೇಮ್ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಆಗ ನಂಗೆ ಅದು ಮ್ಯೂಸಿಕ್ ಕೇಳುವಾಗ ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ಅನಿಸ್ತದೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಇದು ಯಾವ ಸೀಸನ್ನಿಗೆ ಸೆಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಥವಾ ಇನ್ ಜನರಲ್ ಸೆಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾರಾ? ನೀವು ರಾಗಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಪ್ರಹಾರಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡುವಾಗ ಸೀಸನ್ಸ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ?
ಬೇಸಿಕ್ಲಿ ಸೀಸನ್ಸ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಯಾವಾಗ ಅಂದರೆ ಕೆಲವು ಸೀಸ್ನಲ್ ರಾಗಾಸ್ ಅಂತಲೇ ಇದೆ. ವರ್ಷಾ ಋತುದ ರಾಗಗಳು ಬೇರೆ, ಹೇಮಂತ ಋತುದ ರಾಗಗಳು ಬೇರೆ. ಆ ಥರದ ಕೆಲವು ಪ್ರಚಲಿತ ಭಾಳ ಜನಪ್ರಿಯವಿರುವಂಥ ರಾಗಗಳಿದೆ. ಬಟ್ ಅದರ್ವೈಸ್ ಪ್ರಹರದ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ರಾಗಗಳನ್ನ ಆ ಸಮಯದ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಇನ್ ಜನರಲ್ ಆ ಟೈಮ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರಾಗ ಸೂಕ್ತ ಅಂತ. ಇಟ್ ಡಸಂಟ್ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆನ್ ವೆದರ್ ದ ಸನ್ರೈಸ್ 5:45 ಆಯ್ತಾ 6:15 ಆಯ್ತಾ ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅವರು. ಮೊದಲನೇ ಪ್ರಹರದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ರಾಗಗಳು ಆ ಭಾವನೆಯನ್ನು ಹುಟ್ಟಿಸಬಹುದು ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ಅದು. ಈ ಗುಂಪಿನಲ್ಲಿರೋ ರಾಗಗಳನ್ನ ಯಾವ ರಾಗಗಳನ್ನ ಬೇಕಾದರೂ ನೀವು ಹಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಆ ಬೆಳಗಿನ ವಾತಾವರಣ ನಿಮಗೆ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಅನ್ನೋ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಥಿಯರಿ ಇರೋದು. ಅದು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಆ ಭಾವನೆ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತೂ ಹೇಳೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಕೊಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಲೂ ಹೇಳೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ಅದು. ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ ಥಿಯರೀಸ್. ಒಬ್ಬೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಒಬ್ಬರು ಅಂದರೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮರ್, ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಲಿಸ್ನರ್. ನೀವು ಯಾವ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರಾಗ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರಿ. ಈಗ ನನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ತೊಗೊಳ್ಳೋದಾದರೆ, ನನ್ನ ತುಂಬ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆಗಿರುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಭೂಪ್ ರಾಗದ ಸಿ ಡಿಯನ್ನು, ಭೂಪಾಲಿ ಅಥವಾ ಮೋಹನ ರಾಗ ಇರೋದು ಹಿಂದೂಸ್ತಾನಿ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರೀಯ ಸಂಗೀತದ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ಥಾಟಿಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲದ ಹೊತ್ತು ಕೇಳಬೇಕು ಅದನ್ನು. ಅದು ಇರೋದು ರಾಗ ಇರೋದು ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲದ್ದು. ಬೆಳಗಿನ ಜಾವ ಯೋಗ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಆ ಸಿ ಡಿ ಹಾಕ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಯೋಗ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ನಮ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಹಿತಕರವಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಐ ಕಾಂಟ್ ಆಸ್ ದೆಮ್ ನೋ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಸಂತೋಷ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅದರಿಂದ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂದರೆ. ಮೆನಿ ಆಫ್ ದ ನ್ಯಾಚುರೋಪತಿ ಹಾಸ್ಪಿಟಲ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮೈ ಸಿ ಡೀಸ್ ವಿಚ್ ಪ್ಲೇ ರಾಗಾಸ್, different ragas. Darbari Kannada, they are using it in the morning. Todi, they are using it in the evening. The doctors themselves decide, ಇಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಈ ಪೇಷಂಟಿಗೆ ಸರಿ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರು ಹಾಕ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ ಪೇಷಂಟು ಸುಧಾರಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಐ ಸೆಡ್ ಓಕೆ, ನನಗೆ ಸಿ ಡಿ ಮಾರಾಟ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಸೊ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪಿ. ಬಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಥಿಯರಿ ಏನಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ದಿಸ್ ಥಿಯರಿ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್, ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಸೇಯಿಂಗ್. ಈ ಬುಕ್ಕಿನ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಈ ಥರದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಥಿಯರಿ ಇದೆ, ಅದು ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ನಲ್ಲೂ ಇದೆ, ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನು ಪಾಲಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಖಂಡಿತವಾಗಿಯೂ ಅದರಿಂದ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಆಗತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳು ಇದೆ, ಹಲವಾರು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳು ನುಡ್ಸೋರ್ಗೂ ಇದೆ, ಕಲಿಯೋರ್ಗೂ ಇದೆ, ಕೇಳೋರ್ಗೂ ಇದೆ. ಎಲ್ಲದಕ್ಕೂ ಸಮಾಧಾನ ನೀಡುವಂಥ ಉತ್ತರ ಕೊಡೋದು ಕಷ್ಟ. ಬಟ್ ಆ ದಾರಿ ತೋರಿಸ್ಬೋದು, ಈ ದಿಕ್ಕಿನಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಹೋದರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಉತ್ತರ ಸಿಗ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ.
Namaskara. Pravin, thanks a lot for a wonderful evening. It's really, really great, and the conversation also very good. It's not a question, I'm just curious. AI bandu, it has made inroads into all the sectors. So has it affected music also, or do you feel that it may in near future make...
Yadu, sorry?
AI, artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence, okay.
And had you had any opportunity to use it and just test it, how it helps you, or...
No, I have not used it personally as of now. But see, what has happened is over the years there has been a lot of dependence on electronics, on the computers. So the most popular one is the auto-tuner. Anybody can sing and then you can auto-tune it to whatever you want to do. So these are all developments that are taking place. And one thing that I observed with AI is recently I saw a meme where a particular song rendered by a particular singer was changed and morphed to some other singer. So those kind of things are happening right now. But seriously, how AI is going to affect us, we still don't know. Whether it is going to replace musicians, I doubt it. Because in spite of so much technological advancements, still a bansuri played by a performer live is the best thing, so I don't think AI is going to affect us drastically, but definitely yes, there will be some good things also. You never know.
Thank you.
Actually, I asked ChatGPT to write a song in Kannada. Very low, but tumba kettadagi. Same auditorium. Make it better, gottilla. Same auditorium from months ago. English translation book release ಆಗಿದೆ. I asked the same question to Pravin Godkhindi. Okay. So Madhav was also confused. Okay.
So Madhav said, Dara Bendre ಅವರು ಲಿರಿಕ್ಸ್ ಯಾವ ಥರ ಇದೆ ಅಂದರೆ, no AI can translate in any way. So that was, I was just curious about it.
Yeah.
No, it may get better and better because
I have a just general question about the Hindustani music and Carnatic music. In Carnatic music, the lyrics, the Sahitya is written based on an Ishta Devata. All this Tyagaraja, Muthuswami. How is this Hindustani music evolved? Is it based on Gharanas or based on Ragas? What is the real Sahitya in this? But towards whom it is written? On what basis it has evolved?
See, what has happened is Hindustani music also has evolved over centuries, right? So originally, most of the music, as in Carnatic music, even Hindustani, like the Dhrupad till now, they were all about gods. Only when music became part and parcel of palaces, of kings, darbars, then they started writing in praise of the kings. So there was a tectonic shift in the music as well as the lyric. But going forward, what happened, because then the palaces or the kings, they started to disintegrate, and many of the musicians migrated from one place to other, and the local influences also played an important role. So there were several what we now call as thumris, which were romantic lyrics. They also crept in to the khayal singing. So there was a lot of give and take, and lot of other forms of music, musicians, they started learning khayal, so they brought in their poetry. Amir Khusro came in, and then he started his own literature, his own style of writing. There were a lot of Sufi saints, there were a lot of other saints. So everything, there was a lot of give and take. So the lyrics per se now in Hindustani, some are very very traditional, and you can figure out every word and meaning up to it. But some we have lost. Maybe we have lost some of the words in between, or the pronunciation has been different, or the vocalist has not understood the meaning himself and he has mispronounced, and that has been going on. So there are several things that have affected in Hindustani classical music because it has not been documented properly, is what I feel. But most of the legendary musicians had a clear idea of what the lyric was and what they were singing, and they were able to connect and translate also. Many of the legendary maestros did that during the concerts. They used to sing and tell what exactly they're trying to sing. And then there's different languages also. There was Brij Bhasha and some of the taranas and the other stuff that is still part of khayal music is not one language. There are multiple languages that have crept in. So we cannot say that it is only about gods, or only about kings, or only about their loved ones. It's a mix of everything. The Vilambit Bandish is about a god, but the Durut Bandish is about a lover. So everything is served on the platter in the same set of notes.
Of course, I am not intruding at the moment. Since the topic of AI has come, my co-brother and his team, they are in US, and they are, of course, after his retirement, they are trying to develop a program where audience can recognize the ragas. Because many of us may not even recognize some of the ragas when we are listening. And our brain will be struggling which raga it is, and maybe we are asking our neighbors all that. To just avoid that, they are trying to develop a program. This is just an information, not to say anything more than that at the moment.
Namaste. What's your prediction for music another 100 years from now? Or what's your wish for music?
I can only wish that people are more aware about classical music, and melody is something that has to be at the forefront. Over the years, I'm sure you will also agree that even the lighter forms of music have become more rhythm oriented. There's more prominence given to the rhythm and the, what would you call, the guitars or the supporting instruments. And the voice has somehow, in some cases, it has become like an instrument. They modify it. They use a lot of VST plugins, and they morph the voice or double it and add chorus and all not. And that way, in applied forms of music, I feel that we have to go back to the original things, that I see a sea of change in the mix and masters now. They are going back to analogs. They use a lot of analog systems, and so I see that they're coming back. It's a circle. I personally believe it is a circle. All these youngsters who are now into Western rock and pop and metal eventually will come back to classical. It's a it's a circle that everyone goes through, you know. So I think 100 years from now, I can only wish, I can only hope that the West will identify Indian music as classical music, as the main music, not the other forms of music. Right now it's the other way around. It's like Bollywood is the Indian music and classical wo bhi hai India mein. Folk is also there, Indian classical music is also there. It should be the other way around. That's what I can hope and pray for.
Namaskara, Pravin.
Namaskara.
Thank you so much, you and Kiran, for playing for us. I wanted to ask you about this rating system that Doordarshan uses for classical musicians. You mentioned earlier that you play for Doordarshan. Do you think this rating system is still valid, or do you think it needs to be reformed?
Yeah, well, when so many things are changing, I suppose the rating system also has to, there has to be some changes made to it. But broadly, see, because I grew up in the studios of Akashvani, so I have seen how the musicians then used to work and how the musicians now are working. And we are seeing a complete change or a makeover of both these Akashvani and Doordarshan institutions. As I see, they are not hiring new musicians. There's no new employment for any musician. In fact, they're just waiting for the entire lot to just retire and the Doordarshan and Akashvani have to be vacant. I don't know what their plan is in future. Maybe they'll come up with a completely new set of people, new set of artists, new set of production rules or something like that. Some major haul is, I think, is being planned. Otherwise, there's no reason why they're not hiring anybody. If you go to any of the Akashvanis now, anywhere in India, you will find all the buildings vacant. There are hardly 3 or 4 people working there. So there are no fresh recordings. Newer musicians, younger musicians are not getting any opportunities to record. There's nothing happening. So with respect to that, all these while the grading system or the rating system was okay. That was fine. They had followed a particular system and it was fine. But now, since so many things have changed all around us, I think it is high time that we change the rating system, as you say.
ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಸರ್.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
ತುಂಬ ಸಂತೋಷ. ಈ ಒಂದು 2 hours ನಾವು ಹೇಗೆ ಕಳೆದ್ವಿ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನೀವು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಪುಸ್ತಕವನ್ನು ಬರೆದಿದ್ದು ನಮಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಸಂತೋಷ ಆಯಿತು. ನಮ್ಮ ತಾಯಿ ನುಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಓದಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ರೀಚ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನನ್ನ ನಂಬಿಕೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಮೂಲತಃ ಸಾಗರದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿ 3 hours ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೇಳಿದ್ವಿ. ಸೊ ಆ ಒಂದು ಝೇಂಕಾರ ಅದು ನಮಗಿನ್ನೂ ಕಿವಿಯಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ಸೊ ನನಗೆ ಯಾವುದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಹೇಗೆ, ಯಾವ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಬರೆದ್ರಿ, ಸೊ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ನಮಗೆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ನಾನು ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳನ್ನ ಹೇಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾತಾಡಿದೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನನ್ನ ಇಬ್ಬರು ಮೊಮ್ಮಕ್ಕಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಮ್ಯೂಸಿಕಲ್ಲಿ ಈಗ ವೋಕಲ್ಗೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. ಸೊ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಇನ್ನು ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್, ಅವರನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ನಾವು ಆ ಮ್ಯೂಸಿಕ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಂದೆ ತರೋದಕ್ಕೆ 1-2 ಟಿಪ್ಸ್ ಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ತಾವು ಹೇಗೆ, ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಯೋಗಾಸನಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಪ್ರಾಣಾಯಾಮ, ಹೋಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಬ್ರೆತ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕಷ್ಟ, ಅದು ತಾವು ಹೇಗೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ.
ಒಂದು ನಾನು ನನ್ನ ಕಾದಂಬರಿಯಲ್ಲೂ ಬರೆದಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಸಂಸ್ಕಾರ ಭಾಳ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಅಂತ. ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಸಂಸ್ಕಾರ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಅದೇ ದಾರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರು ಮುಂದೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯ ಸಂಗೀತ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತೀರಾ ಹೆಚ್ಚೆಚ್ಚು, ಆ ಸಂಗೀತ ಅವ್ರ ಮನಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಉಳಿಯುತ್ತೆ. ಅದ್ರ ಹಿಂದೆ ಅವರು ಆ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದರು. ಮುಂದೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಖಂಡಿತವಾಗಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಹುಟ್ಟುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ನಂಬಿಕೆ ನಮ್ಮದು. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು, ಈಗ ನನ್ನ ಸಾಧನೆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಬ್ರೆತ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲು ಮತ್ತು ನಾನು ಮಾಡಿರುವಂಥ ಕೆಲವು ಟೆಕ್ನಿಕ್ಸು ಕೆಲವುದು ಅದೆಲ್ಲದು ಏನು ಅಂದರೆ, ಕೊಳಲಿನ ಜೊತೆ ಕೂತಾಗ ಅದರ ಏನೇನೋ ಹೊಳಿತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಏನೋ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಹೊಸ್ತು, ಈ ಥರದ್ದು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಮತ್ತು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಪ್ರಕಾರದ ಸಂಗೀತ ಕೇಳಿದಾಗ ಅವ್ರು ಮಾಡಿರುವಂಥ ಕೆಲವು ಅಂಶಗಳನ್ನ ಕೂಡ ಯಾಕೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಹಿಂದೂಸ್ತಾನಿ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರೀಯ ಸಂಗೀತದಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇರಿಸಬಾರ್ದು ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂಥರ ಒಂದು ಜಿಜ್ಞಾಸೆಯಿಂದ ನಾನು ಕೆಲವು ಇದನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಒಂದು ನಮ್ಮ ತಂದೆ ಯಾವತ್ತೂ ಒಂದು ಹೇಳೋರು, ಒಂದು ಈ ಥರದ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಸರ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಇದನ್ನು ನಿಮ್ಮಷ್ಟು ಫಾಸ್ಟ್ ನೋಡಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಬರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ ತುಂಬ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಭಾಳ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಗುರು ಮಂತ್ರ ಇದೆ, ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್. So that is the only thing. The more time you spend with your instrument, you master it. ಅಷ್ಟೇ. Yes, ma'am.
ಸರ್, ಈಗ ನೀವು ನನಗೆ ಸಂಗೀತ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಇದೆ. ನೀವು ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೂಮೆಂಟ್ ನೋಡಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೀರಿ, ನೀವು ರಾಗ ಹಾಡ್ತಾ ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲೋ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೀರಿ. ಸೊ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾನು ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರೀಯ ಸಂಗೀತದಲ್ಲಿ ಮನೋಧರ್ಮ ಸಂಗೀತ, ರಾಗಂ ತಾನಂ ಪಲ್ಲವಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಒಂದೇನು ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಅವರ ಒಂದು ಒಬ್ಬರ ಸೆಷನಿಗೆ ಹೋದಾಗ ಅದ್ರ ಹಿಂದೆ ಇಷ್ಟು ಮ್ಯಾಥ್ಸ್ ಉಂಟು ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತಾಯಿತು. ಓ ಅಂತ ಅನಿಸಿತು. ಹಾಗೆ ಈ ಥರ ಮ್ಯೂಸಿಕನ್ನು, ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಮ್ಯೂಸಿಕ್ ಯಾವುದೇ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಹಿಂದೂಸ್ತಾನಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಇದನ್ನು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತಾರೆ ಬುಕ್ಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಎಂಥದ್ದು ಉಂಟಾ ಸರ್? ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕುತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೇಳುವಾಗ ಆಹಾ ವಾವ್ ಅಂತ ಅನಿಸ್ತದೆ. ಬಟ್ ಅದರ ಹಿಂದೆ ಇರುವ ಸೈನ್ಸ ಅಥವಾ ಅದರ ಹಿಂದೆ ಇರುವ ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಶ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಅದನ್ನು ಆಸ್ವಾದಿಸ್ಲಿಕ್ಕಾಗೋ ಎಂತಾದರೆ ಮೆಟೀರಿಯಲ್ಸ್ ಉಂಟಾ ವಿಚ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ರೀಡ್?
ಇದು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ನೀವು ಅದನ್ನು ಆಸ್ವಾದಿಸಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ ನೀವು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಲಿಬೇಕು. ಕಲಿಯೋಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಒಂದೊಂದೇ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ, ಗಮಕ ಹಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಮುರ್ಕಿ ಅಂದ್ರೇನು, ಮೀಂಡ್ ಅಂದ್ರೇನು, ಆ ಜಾಗ ಅವರು ಈಗ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಕಾನ್ಸರ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಗುರುಗಳು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋದು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ. ಓ ಇದನ್ನು ನಮ್ಮ ಗುರುಗಳು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು, ಅದನ್ನು ಇವರು ಹಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಅದು ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸ್. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಈ ಕಲಿತಾ ಇದ್ದಂಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಹಾಗೆ ಸುಮಾರಷ್ಟು ಈಗಂತೂ ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಚಾನಲ್ಸೇ ಇದೆ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲನೂ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅನೇಕ ಚಾನಲ್ಗಳಿದೆ, ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಮೆಲ್ಕ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಾ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಈಸ್ ಲಿಸನ್ ಟು ಆಲ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಮ್ಯೂಸಿಕ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಯು ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ವಾಟ್ ಇಂಪ್ರೆಸಸ್. ನಿಮಗೆ ಯಾವ್ದು ತುಂಬ ಇಷ್ಟ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಯಾವ ರಾಗ, ಯಾವ ಶೈಲಿ, ಅದನ್ನು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮೈಂಡ್ ಟ್ಯೂನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಕೆಲವು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳು ಬಂದರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋರ ಹತ್ರ ಕೇಳಿ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೂ ನೀವು ಆಸ್ವಾದಿಸ್ತಾ ಹೋದಂಗೆ ಅದರ ಒಂದು ಏನಂತಾರೆ, ಅದು ನಾವು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಶಾ ಅಂತೀವಿ. ಒಂದು ಅದು ಗುಂಗು ಹಿಡಿಯೋಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಆಯಿತು ಅಂದರೆ ದೆನ್ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ನಾಟ್ ಗೋ ಇನ್ ಟು ದ ಗ್ರಾಮರ್, ಯು ಡೋಂಟ್ ನೀಡ್ ಟು. ಇವ್ರು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮುರ್ಕಿ ಹಾಡಿದ್ರ, ಗಮಕ ಹಾಡಿದ್ರ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ನಂಗೆ ಸಂತೋಷ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ, ನನ್ನ ಹೃದಯ ತುಂಬ್ತಾ ಸಾಕು ಅಂತ. ಹಾಗೆ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರೀಯ ಸಂಗೀತ ಬದುಕ್ತಾ ಇರೋದೇ ಹಾಗೆ. ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ತಾನ್ಸೇನ್ ಆಗೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಕೆಲವರು ಕಾನ್ಸೇನ್ ಆಗಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕಿವಿಯಿಂದ ಕೇಳೋರು. ಸೊ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಅವರೂ ಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಅದು ತಯಾರಾಗೋದು ಹೇಗೆ? ಕೇಳೋದ್ರಿಂದ. ಯಮನ್ ರಾಗ ಒಂದು 50 ರೆಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಯಮನ್ ರಾಗ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ 51ನೇ ಸತಿ ನೀವೇ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಿ ಇದು ಯಮನ್ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ನೀರೇಗಮ ಧನಿ ಸಹ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು, ಸಾನಿದಪ ಮಗರೆ ಸಹ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಯಾರೂ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡೋದು ಬೇಕಿಲ್ಲ. ಆರೋಹಣ ಅವರೋಹಣ ಇದು, ವಾದಿ ಇದು, ಸಂವಾದಿ ಇದು ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾದರೂ ಬೇರೆ ಸ್ವರ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ ಯಮನ್ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇರೆಗೆ ಹೋದ ಇವನು ಅಂತ. ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಅದು ಮಣ್ಣಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ಆ ರಾಗಗಳು ಅಷ್ಟು ನಮ್ಮ ಇದರಲ್ಲೇ ಇದೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲೇ ಇದೆ. ಆಲ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಡೂ ಇಸ್ ಓಪನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಇಯರ್ಸ್, ಯುವರ್ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಲಿಸನ್ ಟು ಇಟ್. That's all we expect the listeners to do. ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು, ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಕಲಿತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀರಾ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಸೇರ್ಕೋಬೇಕು, ಅಪ್ರಿಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನು ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆನೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಲಿಸನ್ ಟು ಇಟ್, ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಅ ಗುಡ್ ಲಿಸ್ನರ್.
And on that note, I'd like to thank both Pravin Godkhindi and his brother Kiran and our wonderful interlocutor for today, Mr. SR Ramakrishnan.